Hello everyone and welcome to the EL111 coursebook. In this video, we're going to be going over the first part of Unit 2. We're going to be talking about stories, so let's see what we have in store for us. Here we have, can you solve the mystery? Before we start anything, I'd like you to pause the video and take a look at some of these pictures here and ask yourself, what do you see? So, if I personally had to guess, here we have an airplane, so perhaps some sort of traveling is going on. Skydiving or someone that is jumping. And then it kind of shifts a little bit because here you have a poster from what I guess is the FBI. So this is probably a wanted man. I'm guessing this is the route that the plane took. And if there's money involved, it's probably someone stealing money. So if I had to guess all of these together, it's probably a wanted man and they stole money and probably jumped from a plane, something along those lines. So let's take a look. Here we have, it says that the pictures represent a true story from 1971. So quite a while back, we already guessed the story. So pause the video and give yourself 30 seconds to quickly read this text, see what it's about, and see what it's talking about, and then continue the video. Okay, so I assume you have a brief idea of what the text is about. I've already read this, so we were sort of right. It is a man, and it seems that he got on a plane and then he's able to steal money just from a first glance. So what we're going to do now is, one more time, I'd like you to pause the video, but this time take more time and read, like really dive deeper into the text so that you get a better idea of what was really going on throughout the story. Okay? Now I'm going to continue the video as if you did just that. I've already read this, so I have a pretty good idea of what was going on. It's not a complete story if you read through it. We don't really get an ending for it, which is quite unique. So let's take a look at, I want to say, actually, before we do that, just something in writing. Here we have a focus, so let's go over it quickly. We have capital letters, and when we write something in the English language, capital letters are a big part of our punctuation. So something to keep in mind is that we usually capitalize the first letter of the name of something. So if it's your name, if it's the name of a city, if it's the name of a country, people you know, months, all of these things are written with the first letter being capital. So for example, let's take a look together at some texts that might be in capital. So if you look at this is the beginning of a sentence, so the H will be capital and the word he. Here we have a name, Dan Cooper. D is capital and Cooper is capital. November is the name of a month, so that'll be in capital as well. If you keep looking, you'll see a lot of capital letters. It's a big part of the English language. Again, Seattle Airport, the name of the airport, so the S and A are capital, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's go to exercise 3. Listen to the rest of the story. What do you think happened to Cooper? So based on the story that we read, we know that, well, we don't know what happened. It never ended. So she noticed he was trying something around his waist, but then it was dark and stormy and nothing else happened. And that's where the story stops. So let's listen to the rest of the story together and come up with a conclusion as to what happened. So here we go.
At about 8 p.m., a light came on in the cockpit. It indicated that a door on the outside of the plane was open. At 10:15 p.m., the pilot landed the plane at Reno Airport. Armed police surrounded the plane and checked inside. Cooper was not there, and neither was the money or 2 of the parachutes. His tie was left on his seat. The police looked for Cooper in the area where he jumped, but didn't find anyone. In fact, nobody saw Cooper ever again. However, in February 1980, a young boy called Brian Ingram was digging holes in the sand when he found some envelopes full of money. There were 2 packets of $120 bills and a third packet containing only 90. Tests showed that it was some of the money given to Cooper 9 years earlier. It is the only evidence of the hijacking ever found. To this day, nobody knows for sure what happened to the man known as Dan Cooper.
Okay, so the story ends on a cliffhanger, which is no one really knows what happened, but we do have a few clues. The fact that he was able to jump from the plane before they got to him, and then when they did, he just simply wasn't there. And then 9 years later, imagine being a kid simply playing around and then finding envelopes of money that was used 9 years earlier as a form of payment to Dan Cooper. That means we're probably going to have to come up with our own conclusion. I think he made it, honestly. I think he is someone that was very smart and was able to fool everyone and then live undercover with the money. So I'm not really sure, but if I had to lean towards one or the other, it's probably that he made it. Some people might disagree, you might disagree, or you might agree. Again, feel free to think this through and, state your opinion. Okay. Let's go into this focus here, the focus for expression. When you tell a story, it is important to use phrases which help you put information in order. Okay, what does this mean? So, say you're telling a story to someone. If you just say things right away, it starts to get confusing after a while, especially if it's a longer story. So you need to, similar to how you number things in a list so that you don't get confused, you do the same, but on a bigger scale when you're telling a story, verbally, of course. So you could use the expression, first of all, which indicates that this is the first thing that happened and you're about to keep going. And then next is the one after that. In the process, you'll say after that, which is the one that I just used, to indicate that there's a space throughout the story. And then when you use and, you're usually getting towards the end. So and then you keep going with your story. And use finally when you're concluding the story. So that's the final part, that's it, and then you move on with the story. Okay? So I hope that made ordering information a little bit easier for you, especially when talking to people, and especially when it's a longer story as well. Now, let's go to 4. Discuss the questions and give reasons for your answers. Okay, very unique. Let's see what we have here. Was Dan Cooper the man's real name? Again, we're discussing these, so there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. There is, however, ones that are more believable than others. So I'll state my own, you state your own, and I would like you to compare our answers and see if you have the same one or not. So was Dan Cooper the man's real name? I would say no. I mean, if you're doing something of this magnitude and this dangerous and you're getting the government and the FBI involved, I think it would be best to create some sort of fake name, especially if you want to live undercover afterwards. So Dan Cooper is definitely not the man's real name, in my opinion. Was the bomb real? This is an interesting one. I would go towards yes, it was real, but he had no plans of ever using it. I don't think he was a terrorist, and I don't think he was going to blow the plane up if they refused to cooperate or something like that. But I do think it's real. I mean, you don't really know what if a person can read his bluff. So I think having a real bomb was a good way to ensure that he did get the money. Was Cooper clever? Yes, I would say if you can avoid the FBI and make that much money, or basically rob people for that much money, then you have to be at least pretty clever, right? Was he kind? I would say he was, because if we go back to the text here, very specific part, um, you'll notice that he actually, what did he do? He ordered a second drink and then told the flight attendant to keep the change. So that was pretty kind of him. Again, kind is a weird description, because if we're talking about keeping the change, usually someone is kind when they do that. But again, he is someone that is robbing people and avoiding the government and all of that. So in that specific case, I'd say yes. So he was kind. Why did Cooper wear dark clothes? I would say he wore dark clothes because he timed it so that he would jump out of the plane when it was dark and stormy, which makes it that much more difficult to track him, even if they wanted to. So I think that is the reason for him wearing dark clothes. Why did the airport manager wear normal clothes? You'll notice that at some point in the text, the airport manager was wearing normal clothes instead of the uniform when they approached Cooper to give him the money. I think that is so that the public doesn't know what's going on and so that people don't panic. So I think that is why the manager chose to appear as a normal person as opposed to someone in uniform. Why did Cooper tell the pilot to fly to Mexico? Um, the only explanation I have for this would probably because he wanted to land somewhere in between. So not exactly in Mexico, but somewhere along that area between Mexico and the United States. So that is why he said to fly to Mexico. And why did he want the plane to fly slowly? I would argue it's because he wanted to jump, and you're not really going to be able to jump if a plane is going like 900 kilometers per hour. So fly slowly because it's easier to jump out of a plane that is flying slower. Okay, so these were my answers. Feel free to have your own answers as well, but check your reasons, check my answer, check your answer, and sit with yourself and think which one is more believable. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the focus here. Here we have narrative tenses, and we've seen this in the previous unit as well. When we talk about finished past actions, we use the past simple. So things that have happened in the past and they're done, we use the past simple. So I saw an accident this morning. I ate a bowl of cereal this morning. All of these are examples of the past simple. On the other hand, we use the past continuous to give background information. So past continuous, you'll put this in the past and then add an ing. So I was walking to work. I saw an accident while I was walking to work. Okay? So we can also put the two parts of this story together. Now, let's go to number 5. This is an exercise based on what we just looked at. So let me reset this first. Using the correct form of the verbs in the brackets. Which person from the story do you think is saying each sentence? Okay, let's focus on correcting the forms of the verbs in the brackets first. All right. So A, I play in the sand when I find the money. Again, this is not the correct one. The correct one would be I was playing in the sand when I found the money. Okay, was playing, found. Okay. B, I served drinks when he gave me the note. This is definitely the flight attendant speaking. So I was serving drinks when he gave in the past, when he gave me the note. C, it rained when I jump. It was raining when I jumped. When the plane dash, we wait for with our guns. When the plane outside landed, we were waiting with our guns. So when the plane landed, we were waiting with our guns. E, when he jump, I fly the plane at only 120 miles per hour. That is definitely the pilot talking. So when he jumped, I was flying. Okay, you guys. I was flying the plane at only 120 miles per hour. F, that is the airport manager, by the way, because of the uniform. So I not wear a uniform when I deliver the money. That'll be I was not wearing a uniform when I delivered the money. Okay? G, he not wear sunglasses when I sell him the ticket. So he was not wearing sunglasses when I, what's the past of sell? Sold. Sold him the ticket. H, I sit next to Cooper, but I not know he had a bomb. I was sitting next to Cooper, but I not know will be did not know he had a bomb. So let's go over these one more time. Actually, let us check our answers first. There you go. I was playing in the sand when I found the money. I was serving drinks when he gave me the note. It was raining when I jumped. When the plane landed, we were waiting with our guns. When he jumped, I was flying the plane at only 120 miles per hour. I was not wearing a uniform when I delivered the money. He was not wearing sunglasses when I sold him the ticket. And finally, I was sitting next to Cooper, but I did not know he had a bomb. Okay, so this was exercise 5, the grammar. Let's take a look at number 6. Complete the questions about the story. Let's see. Then ask and answer the questions of pairs. Okay, so these are some questions based on the text as well, based on the story. And we just have to write them down correctly. So again, we're going to be using the grammar we learned. So here we have what Cooper where get on the plane. Very interesting. We could say something like, what was, remember, Cooper's in capital because it's a name. So Cooper wearing when he got on the plane. Okay, so what was Cooper wearing when he got on the plane? He was wearing a suit. B, what say flight attendant? What did he say to the flight attendant? C, where plane land 17.39? Let me think. This will be, where did the plane land at 1739? Oh, that is, there you go. Where did the plane land at 1739? D, who Cooper talked to workers refuel the plane? Interesting. Okay, this will be, let's go this one by one. Who did Cooper talk to? I'll use while the workers were, and then we'll use the word refuel, but because we have were, we'll add an ing. So we're refueling the plane. Okay. E, where plane fly to Cooper jump? This one's a little easier. Where was the plane flying to when Cooper jumped. And F, how fast plane fly? This one's pretty easy. How fast was plane flying? G, who wait plane land Reno airport? Okay. So I know they were waiting for him at the airport, so we'll say who was waiting when the plane landed at Reno airport. Okay, so let's go over these one more time together. What was Cooper wearing when he got on the plane? What did he say to the flight attendant? Where did the plane land at 1739? Who did Cooper talk to while the workers were... Oh, this is 2 words, so just one. Who did Cooper talk to while the workers were refueling the plane? Where was the plane flying to when Cooper jumped? How fast was the plane flying? Who was waiting when the plane landed at Reno Airport? All right, awesome. Let's actually double check. There you go. Okay. All right, let's go to the next page. Here we have exercise 7. After the hijacking happened by Dan Cooper, the FBI opened an investigation. Interesting. Listen to a detective give details of the investigation and make notes. Okay, so we're going to be making notes, and what we're going to do is I would like you to pull out a pen and paper and make a table similar to this one. And I want you to listen to the audio. I'm going to play it multiple times. And I want you to, first of all, the first listen should get a general idea of what the detective is talking about and what is going on. And then for the second audio, well, I'll tell you what to do when we get to that. But for now, have a listen and just get a general idea of what is being said here, okay?
First of all, the investigators gathered any evidence they could find. There was the black tie Cooper left behind on the seat in the aeroplane, and there were the 2 parachutes he didn't use. They also found 66 unidentified fingerprints. And then, of course, there was the money the young boy found. The investigators then began talking to anyone who spoke to Cooper, in particular, the flight attendant and the ticket sales clerk. They asked these witnesses lots of questions about Cooper. For example, how tall was he? What was he wearing? What was his voice like? Was he calm or excited? These descriptions helped the investigators to develop a complete picture of the man. In order to estimate where Cooper landed, investigators conducted an experiment. They sent the same plane on the same journey with the same pilot, and at the estimated time that Cooper jumped, they dropped a 91-kilogram weight from the plane. Once they had an idea of location, they began searching a very wide mountainous area. The FBI also contacted experts in several fields. Perhaps the most interesting theory came from psychology experts. Most psychologists agreed that Cooper probably had very serious and urgent financial problems, which forced him to do something so dangerous. However, some psychologists suggested he was a thrill seeker, meaning somebody who simply enjoyed extreme danger and excitement. While the FBI doesn't have a complete theory on Cooper, there are some things they believe. Based on his actions that day, they know he was a very careful planner. They think he knew the Seattle area very well. They also suggest he was an Air Force veteran, although they do not believe he had much experience with parachutes because the jump was simply too dangerous. It is this fact that convinces the FBI that Cooper did not survive. However, many people believe Cooper did survive, and some even claim to know his identity.
Okay, so that gives us a better idea of what this audio is talking about and how it was presented. Now, what I want you to do is pull out a pen and paper and write something similar to what I'm doing here. So we're going to have a layout for evidence, witness questions was the second part they talked about, and then experiments, or rather one experiment, and finally theories. Now, what I want you to do is listen to the audio one more time, but make notes about the evidence that was presented by the FBI, the witness questions they asked, what kind of experiment did they do, and what are some theories that were going around as this investigation was going on. So let's listen one more time, you guys.
First of all, the investigators gathered any evidence they could find. There was the black tie Cooper left behind on the seat in the aeroplane, and there were the 2 parachutes he didn't use. They also found 66 unidentified fingerprints. And then, of course, there was the money the young boy found. The investigators then began talking to anyone who spoke to Cooper, in particular, the flight attendant and the ticket sales clerk. They asked these witnesses lots of questions about Cooper. For example, how tall was he? What was he wearing? What was his voice like? Was he calm or excited? These descriptions helped the investigators to develop a complete picture of the man. In order to estimate where Cooper landed, investigators conducted an experiment. They sent the same plane on the same journey with the same pilot, and at the estimated time that Cooper jumped, they dropped a 91-kilogram weight from the plane. Once they had an idea of location, they began searching a very wide mountainous area. The FBI also contacted experts in several fields. Perhaps the most interesting theory came from psychology experts. Most psychologists agreed that Cooper probably had very serious and urgent financial problems, which forced him to do something so dangerous. However, some psychologists suggested he was a thrill seeker, meaning somebody who simply enjoyed extreme danger and excitement. While the FBI doesn't have a complete theory on Cooper, there are some things they believe. Based on his actions that day, they know he was a very careful planner. They think he knew the Seattle area very well. They also suggest he was an Air Force veteran, although they do not believe he had much experience with parachutes because the jump was simply too dangerous. It is this fact that convinces the FBI that Cooper did not survive. However, many people believe Cooper did survive, and some even claim to know his identity.
All right, so I hope you were able to make some of the notes here. Let's take it step by step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to put these together. And let's start with evidence. So the FBI had quite a few things that they could use as evidence. So they had the black tie that was left by Dan Cooper, the 2 parachutes that he couldn't use. If you guys remember, they also found 6 unidentified fingerprints. And obviously we can't forget about the money found in the sand 9 years later. Okay, so this is our evidence. We have the black tie, 2 parachutes, 66 unidentified. I should probably write this better. Unidentified fingerprints and the money found in the sand 9 years later. Okay. Witness questions. These are some of the questions that they were asked some of the witnesses. Things like, how tall was he? What was he wearing? Oh, that's a big one. What was his voice like? And was he calm? All of these things help build a profile. So these were some of the questions that the FBI would ask witnesses. Now let's go to experiment. Experiment, we're going to say that the FBI used the same plane and went the same route, which was that same route that Dan Cooper asked them to go, so somewhere to Mexico. They also did it with the same pilot. Did it with the same pilot, and this is how I'm going to write this. At the estimated time of the jump, they how big was it? They dropped a 91 kg weight, which allowed them to further investigate. What was the kind of area? It was a mountainous area. Okay, let me give you a brief idea of what I'm doing here. So basically, I'm writing the experiment using my own words. You don't have to take the audio word for word when listening. Remember, you're not memorizing. What you're doing is you're trying to write notes that you can access later that gives you details that were in the audio. So feel free to use your own words as long as the general idea of the same. So if you wrote something like this, but it looks a little different, that's completely fine. But if you wrote something else completely and it's not even the same experiment anymore, then you should probably change your notes a little bit, okay? Now let's go to theories, which was very interesting. They said that Cooper probably had serious and urgent financial problems, which forced him to do something like this. Again, this is my wording. Some psychologists also think that he was simply a thrill seeker and he enjoyed danger. So how could we write that? We can say something like, he was a thrill seeker and enjoyed doing dangerous things. There's also one more theory. I mean, it's not a concluded one, but I do have to add it as well in this section, was that the FBI knew that he was a careful planner, and that he also knew the Seattle area very well. It could also say that he was also probably an Air veteran or Air Force veteran of some sort due to the way he handled things. So he was probably an Air Force veteran, but he also didn't really know how to use parachutes. So we could say something like he didn't have much experience with parachutes. And I think this is the main reason as to why they think he probably wasn't able to make it. The jump was just too dangerous. So we'll say they think, they here indicates the FBI, obviously. They think because of how dangerous the jump was, he probably died. Okay, let's open this and get a better view. So for our evidence, we had the black tie, the 2 parachutes, the 66 unidentified fingerprints, and the money found in the sand 9 years later. Witness questions. Things like how tall was he? What was he wearing? What was his voice like? And was he calm? All of these, like we said, help build a complete profile about the person. Experiment. The experiment that they did was the FBI used the same plane and went the same route with the same pilot. We can also add at the same speed. At the estimated time of the jump, they dropped a 91 kilogram weight, which is, again, an estimate of how much he weighed as well, which allowed them to further investigate a mountainous area. Theories. Some theories came around because there's no definitive answer, but things like Cooper probably had serious and urgent financial problems, which forced him to do something like this. So he was probably he needed the money urgently, or something serious was going on. So this might drive a man crazy enough to do something like this. Or on the other side of the spectrum, he was probably just a thrill seeker and really enjoyed doing dangerous things. So yeah. The FBI's theory is that they knew he was a careful planner and that he knew the Seattle area very well. Probably also an Air Force veteran, but did not have much experience with parachutes, which, considering how dangerous the jump was, is probably the reason he ultimately died. All right. So now that we're done here, let's take a look at this exercise here. Exercise 1, witness accounts. Listen to a detective interview. Let's see. Okay, we have another listening, you guys. What we're going to be doing is, I want you to listen to this interview here. We have 2 different witnesses telling their side of the story about a bank robbery. So again, listen first of all, get a feel for how things are and what the interview is like, and listen to both witnesses. And then we're going to listen again. Well, I'll talk more about it once we finish the first part. Here we go.
Witness account 1.
What were you doing when the robbery started?
I was queuing up to withdraw some money.
And what happened first?
I heard someone shouting, and when I turned around, I saw a man with a mask on his face.
Can you describe him?
He was about 6 feet tall and he was very thin.
And what was he wearing?
He was wearing grey trousers and a black top.
What was he shouting? Can you remember?
He was shouting, "Everybody on the floor."
Did he have a bag?
Yes, he had a plastic bag with him.
And what happened next?
He went up to the till next to me. Then he asked the cashier to put all the money she had in the bag. So the cashier put the money in the bag, and the man ran out of the bank.
Could you see where he went?
Yes, I could see him through the window. He got into a green car, and the car drove north along Sullivan Street.
Okay, thank you. That's very useful.
Witness account 2.
Where were you when the robbers came in?
I was sitting in the corner of the bank when it happened. I was waiting to see the manager, because I have a problem with my account, you see. Anyway, suddenly 2 men came bursting into the bank. One stood by the door and the other one went up to the counter.
And then what happened?
The man at the counter started shouting, "Put all the money in the case." He had a briefcase. Then he said, "Nobody will be hurt if you do what I say."
What did you do?
Well, I just stayed quiet and looked at him carefully because I knew the police were going to ask me. So he was about 5 feet 8 inches tall and he was medium build. I think he was wearing grey trousers and a blue top. The other guy was shorter and he was wearing all black.
Did the bank people get the money?
Yes. The cashier put all the money in the briefcase and the two men ran out of the bank. They got into a brown car and drove off quickly. They went east towards the motorway.
Okay, so now that we have a good idea of how the interview goes, what we're going to do is, again, I want you to get a pen and paper, and what we're going to do is I'm going to write this down because I don't think this is going to be enough space for the notes that we're going to be writing. So I'll put this here. I'll add description of the robbers, and then I'll add 1 and 2. And each number indicates the witness. So we have 2 witnesses, witness number 1, and then witness number 2. Then I'm going to do the same for the sequence of events, basically the events that were happening as the robbery was going on. And for that, again, I'm doing witness number 1 and then witness number 2. What I want you to do is listen to the audio again and write the descriptions. Make notes, basically. Make notes of the description of the robbers made by witness 1 and witness 2, and the sequence of events by 1 and 2 as well. And then we'll look at our answers together. Okay, so here we go.
Witness account 1.
What were you doing when the robbery started?
I was queuing up to withdraw some money.
And what happened first?
I heard someone shouting, and when I turned around, I saw a man with a mask on his face.
Can you describe him?
He was about 6 feet tall and he was very thin.
And what was he wearing?
He was wearing grey trousers and a black top.
What was he shouting? Can you remember?
He was shouting, "Everybody on the floor."
Did he have a bag?
Yes, he had a plastic bag with him.
And what happened next?
He went up to the till next to me. Then he asked the cashier to put all the money she had in the bag. So the cashier put the money in the bag and the man ran out of the bank.
Could you see where he went?
Yes, I could see him through the window. He got into a green car and the car drove north along Sullivan Street.
Okay, thank you. That's very useful.
Witness account 2.
Where were you when the robbers came in?
I was sitting in the corner of the bank when it happened. I was waiting to see the manager because I have a problem with my account, you see. Anyway, suddenly 2 men came bursting into the bank. One stood by the door and the other one went up to the counter.
And then what happened?
The man at the counter started shouting, "Put all the money in the case." He had a briefcase. Then he said, "Nobody will be hurt if you do what I say."
What did you do?
Well, I just stayed quiet and looked at him carefully because I knew the police were going to ask me. So he was about 5 feet 8 inches tall and he was medium build. I think he was wearing grey trousers and a blue top. The other guy was shorter and he was wearing all black.
Did the bank people get the money?
Yes. The cashier put all the money in the briefcase and the 2 men ran out of the bank. They got into a brown car and drove off quickly. They went east towards the motorway.
All right, so I'm going to be writing my own notes now. And remember, notes are not inherently right or wrong, but you do want to pick notes that make the most sense when you look at them later. So compare your notes with mine and see if yours makes sense. It might make more sense, it might make less sense, and we're just practicing how to write our notes. So, description of the robbers. The first witness said that he was 6 foot tall. He was also very thin. He was wearing gray trousers and black top. Okay. And what did the other witness say? The other witness had something totally different. He said he was 5'8" tall. He was medium build. He was also wearing gray trousers, but it was a blue top. And he also mentioned 2 people, not just one, so we need to keep that in mind as well. Let me actually put some space here. And then we'll say something like, other guy was shorter and wearing all black. All right, so 6 foot tall, very thin, gray trousers and a black top. 2 said he was 5'8" tall, medium build, gray trousers and blue top, and that's a typo. Other guy was shorter and wearing all black. Now let's go to the sequence of events, and this is where things look a little interesting. So the first one was queuing up to withdraw cash when he heard shouting. And then he turned around and he turned around and saw a man wearing a mask. Okay. What did the man say? The man, he shouted. He here implicates the man, the robber. Okay? So, not the witness. So, we'll say like he shouted, everybody to get on the floor. He then asked the cashier to put all the money in the bag. How did he escape? If I remember correctly, he got into a green car and headed north along Sullivan Street. Okay. Let me just fix my typos. He's queuing up to withdraw cash when he heard shouting. He turned around and saw a man wearing a mask. He shouted, everybody get on the floor. He then asked the cashier, no H here, to put all the money in the bag. He got into a green car and headed north along Sullivan Street. All right. Now, for witness number 2, their sequence of events was a little bit different. He was sitting in the corner of the bank when the robbery happened. 2 men came in bursting. Man in the counter started shouting. What else? They took the money and escaped in a brown car, so not the same color. And where did they head? They heading east. It was towards the motorway. All right. So let's take a look at these one more time. We have the descriptions of the robbers: 6 foot tall, very thin, gray trousers, black top. 2 is 5'8", tall, medium build, gray trousers and blue top. Other guy was shorter and wearing all black. The sequence of events: queuing up to withdraw cash when he heard shouting, he turned around and saw a man wearing a mask. He shouted, "Everybody get on the floor." He then asked the cashier to put the money in the bag. He got into a green car and headed north along Sullivan Street. Sitting in the corner of the bank, well, this is the second sequence of events. He was sitting in the corner of the bank when the robbery happened. 2 men came in bursting, came in the counter. Man in the counter started shouting, and they took the money and escaped in a brown car heading east towards the motorway. Okay, so this was my notes for this audio. I hope yours looks similar. What else do we have? Compare your notes and highlight any differences in the 2 statements, and then decide which version is the most believable. Let's take a look together here. So some very obvious differences are in the description of the robbers. One is 6 foot tall, the other is 5'8", and the other person that was with the guy in the second story was shorter, so we can guess something like 5'6" or 5'4". In the first witness said that he was very thin. Second one said medium build. No mention of the other guy except the fact that he was just shorter. So they were both wearing gray trousers, and then that third guy was wearing all black. However, the first witness said that he was wearing a black top. The other one was wearing a blue top. So again, that's another difference. Now let's go to the sequence of events. One was queuing up to withdraw cash when he heard shouting. He turned around and saw a man wearing a mask. He shouted, "Everybody get on the floor." He then asked the cashier to put all the money in the bag. So here he asked the cashier to put all the money in the bag, and then he got into a green car and headed north along Sullivan Street. This one's a little bit different. The second sequence of events was, or based on the second witness, was when the robbery happened, 2 men came in bursting and not one. The man in the counter started shouting. They took the money and escaped in a brown car, so not a green car, but rather a brown car, and they didn't head north, they headed east. Instead of Sullivan Street, it's the motorway. Now, based on these 2 sequence of events and the descriptions, what do you guys think is more believable? If I had to guess, I would definitely choose the second witness, simply because I feel like if you're robbing a bank, you wouldn't do it alone. At the very least, 2 people. It's always good to have backup. That is my first initial thought, was that one person is simply not enough to rob a bank. Not that I would ever rob a bank. I don't want to incriminate myself. What else do we have that could be of clue? I think also the fact that they got away in a brown car makes it less suspicious. I mean, using a green car is just asking to get caught. It's way too unique on the street. It's very different, so it's spottable, if you will. So I feel like a brown car makes more sense. And finally, why would you head north into something like Sullivan Street that could have more traffic, a lot of stores, places where you could get stuck in traffic, basically, as opposed to heading east towards the motorway, which most of the time is a highway that goes at much faster speeds and helps you get away faster. So I hope you're able to see my point. I would definitely choose the second witness. The second witness's information as more valid than the first one. So I think this concludes the first part of Unit 2A. I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.